to this sucker. Oh, there it is. Wicked. That is just bitchin'. What do we have here in the background? Oh yeah, this is Luke's lightsaber. Oh, those are so cool. Hey dudes, you know how I tell you to go out and make family memories? If you are a father of boys, you could not do any better than getting your kids some of these. No, this isn't a review on them, but they've been in the Nut and Fancy family for several years now. They are the Star Wars Force FX Lightsabers. Oh, they're so cool. So cool. I know what you guys are saying. Dude, do a review on the lightsabers. Those are cool. They are cool, man. We've had so many battles with these. Listen to those sound effects. Those are just awesome. These are kind of expensive toys though, dudes. Christmas presents years ago with the very, detailed instructions to the boys. You take care of these. These are not to be thrashed on. We sword fight with them, but very gently. We don't just wail on them. They're collectible, hand-me-down toys. And man, it's fun. The boys and I have lots of fun memories playing with these lightsabers. God, we should just do a review on them, huh? Yeah. We're not really here to talk about lightsabers, though. We're here to talk about flashlights. Oh man, it's going to be a hard transition. Bear with me, though. Yeah, we're going to talk about flashlights. Again, if you guys are wondering, what are these? These are the Force FX lightsabers by Hasbro, licensed Star Wars products. Man, they're cool. The reason I roll those into the review, dudes, is because this reminds, particularly this one, I guess this is Luke Skywalker's lightsaber. It reminds me a lot of the flashlight I'm going to review. Nitecore, you've seen it in the intro. D20. Every time I was out testing this out in the woods, in the water, on a lot of adventures, all since last summer, it always reminded me of this. Primarily because of the way it's constructed. We'll talk about that as we go down the talking points. I better shut this off. Ultimately distracting. And hang on a sec, let me square my lights away too, just a second. Alright, back with you. I know you guys are saying, dude, turn the lightsaber back on. That thing is cool. It is cool. Oh, so fun, so fun. And by the way, getting back to that, just as a quick side note, get out and spend fun times with your boys or your little girls, if that's what you have, dads, and do things that they like too. Time flies by. My oldest has already left the house. That sucks. And childhood is over. But man, what an awesome childhood he had in the Nut and Fancy family. Prepares them for life. It does. Prepares them for life. The things they learn and play will be their foundation in life, partially, along with the, just all the other stuff you teach them as parents. But I digress. Flashlight review. D20 by Nitecore. Man, we've had this in the project for some time now, testing, and it is an awesome, awesome multi-mode, high quality, let's call it ultra high quality, new LED technology light. Not really new anymore as far as the technology goes. Remember my video ways back, shedding some light on new LED lighting technologies. Everyone that's been around TMP for a while should be aware of these new lighting technologies. If you are just tuning in, if you Google this video, then welcome to the club. It is a whole different ball game, dudes. These lights are. They absolutely dominate incandescent lights. There's no comparison anymore. Here is a overly expensive E2D Executive Defender by Surefire. Not yet retrofitted with a LED module, so you can kind of see the beam there. See, it's kind of yellow. Then, compared to the the D20, there's just no comparison. Get this on here. There we go. See that? We're going to talk about the beam here in a bit. And interestingly, just as a side note, to retrofit this E2D Defender with Cree LED module would be about the same price as buying one of these complete, or any other quality multi-mode flashlight. Maybe a Phoenix, a Olight, Quark, which is 47's brand, also awesome lights. But the PD has a lot going for it. We're going to go down the talking points. I'm going to see if I can go as quick as I can. Some things I'll cover in detail, some things I'll probably forget, out of order and all that stuff. Speaking of out of order, let's just jump into that. I'm going to jump right into the construction talking point. Okay, and the reason I introed with those ultra cool lightsabers is because it reminds me of a lightsaber. Look at that heat sink. The construction on the Nitecore flashlight specifically, let's just keep it where we are now, the D20, is outstanding. Super high quality, 7075 series aluminum. That's basically the same aluminum they make AR-15, M4, M16 receivers out of. Very tough. Type 3 mil-spec anodizing, dark gray in color. So it's not black. I like how Nitecore, we're talking second type of cool here, guys. I like how Nitecore went with a different coloration on it. It's not black. It may look black in the camera, but it's actually dark gray. And that heat sink is, of course, reminiscent of that. Okay, it's stupid, I know, but that's just what it makes me think of. Heat sink, why? Because that emitter head with LED in it puts out a fair amount of heat. Okay? And so that's just a way they can cool the emitter head. Not all of them have it, and I don't know if it's absolutely necessary. I mean, here by way of reference, also outstanding Phoenix LD20. It doesn't have heat sinks on it, and it functions just fine, even after extended period of time. Okay, fair enough. Also notice the stepped body, also reminiscent of the lightsaber. See how it's stepped, goes down, kind of narrows in the body, so if you want to do a cigar hold, maybe while weapon firing, which I think is extremely difficult, by the way, to shoot accurately. Been there, done it. It's tough, but you can. And forget that. It's just a little bit more comfortable as it narrows through the body. Maybe not quite as narrow as the LD20. And yeah, it's fair to compare these, right? There's the Phoenix LD20 on the bottom, Nitecore, you know, PD. That stands for Piston Drive D20. We'll talk about that here in a second. Much smaller light. Much larger light, okay? Construction, if I were to compare and just say fit and finish between these two lights, forget functionality, modes, brightness, beam patterns, all that other cool stuff which attracts us to these ultra high quality lights, the D20 wins. It's just flawless. The execution, fit and finish, there's something special about the D20 when you get it. You first notice that when you get the box. Funky logo, reminds me of Mother Russia. Nitecore, but cool box, and I actually have two versions. I have this older version, the Q5 version, which has been heavily tested by the Nut and Fancy crew, primarily me, and then also the D20 R2 version on loan for review purposes. We'll crack this bad boy open because I've tested it, you know, not hard, but been, you know, beam patterns and stuff. But check this out. This is what I'm talking about. It just smacks of quality. You know, there's your instruction booklet. I rarely show opening stuff because it just takes some time that I don't want to spend usually. There you have it. Nice box. Here's your carry case with accessories. Again, I'm jumping ahead. And actually, somewhere in there, there's a lanyard missing in action. And then it has an Allen wrench, couple O-rings, and a couple screws for extra screws for the clip. Nicely executed box. Do I really care about the box, me, Nut and Fancy? No, I don't. Not really. It's cool. I'm using this just by way of reference of showing you how well executed the entire Nitecore D20 is. Starting off with the packaging. Continues on to the light, and it really would mean nothing if the light wasn't squared away, right? This is a tough light. I've banged and I won't say abused, but hard used this light, the Nitecore D20, for easy 6 months, and it shows no signs of giving up. Dropped it onto pavement. You can see some nicks and bumps and scrapes on the anodizing, but amazingly it doesn't show a lot of wear for the amount of use it's seen. Okay, and I'm talking wilderness use too, in the water use, and so it's very high quality. I'll give it a solid A. Also waterproofness. Okay, put it in the Nut and Fancy flashlight water barrel, and it passed with flying colors, both in static testing And also dynamic testing, that's swishing the light around all over the place. Of course, it didn't leak at all. Will it stay that water resistant over time? It's hard to say. Mostly it will be a function of the O-rings, don't you think? So there's your O-rings there. And by the way, while we have it off, we can see the anodizing. That has some silicone lubricant on it to just help screw it on. And this particular light is running those lithium Energizer bats. We'll talk about that. And nice anodizing. Notice that it is anodized. Sometimes some of these lights, including some Phoenix varieties, do not anodize the threads. Why is that important? Because it just allows the head, in this case the emitter head, to screw on more easily. But as long as, getting back to waterproofness, as long as that O-ring has good integrity, you should be fairly waterproof. Assuming there's no leakage back here. Okay, and I'll talk about that Lanyard stuff. I know you guys are wondering about that. So another A for the D20 and waterproofness. In all respects, it just rocks. And you know, honestly, it's not surprising. They all should. This is a high quality, ultra high quality flashlight. It shouldn't leak at all. Okay, so construction is ideal. One thing I didn't talk about is the reflector. See, it's kind of have a shallow orange peel, very deeply set emitter head. This again is the Q5 version. And where did that R2 version go? The R2 version is a brighter LED. It has some advantages over the other one. I'm kind of, well, I'll wait for that one. But both of the emitter heads are right here. Slight orange peel, very deep. And we'll talk about how that affects beam pattern. The glass lens too, they call it a dual coating on the glass lens, I think, and they have a proprietary name for it. All I know is it hasn't scratched on us in heavy use. And the reflector seems to get its job done. Again, we'll get to beam throws here in just a second, but there are some issues that some dudes may have with the D20. I like it. Size and weight, let's back up a little bit. Back to this talking point, and let me lower this a little bit. With lithium batteries, 5 ounces. And like I just showed you, this has lithium batteries in it. They last in cold conditions. They last in storage a lot longer, and they make the light lighter. 5.8 ounces with interloops, 5 ounces flat with liths in them. And that's what this light is. Same for the R2. But on the fair side, we need to say that the D20 by Nitecore is a larger AA sized light. Okay, it's going to be bigger than pretty much most of the competition that I've personally used and seen, like the Fenix LD20. This light rocks, seen in review, very positively, I might add, in the nutnfancy project, and it remains so. You can see how it's thinner, like we noted earlier, and it's lighter, substantially. How about the Quark? That is a proprietary brand of 4.7s. They're a great company, by the way. I love 4.7s, and they are doing some great work in their own flashlights. This is one of them. This is a Quark AA square tactical. Watch for it in a review sometime. Don't bug me, it's coming. Look at that, smaller than the D20. Is that a showstopper for me? You know, guys, that I'm big on the weight, right? Well, not necessarily, to be honest with you. After having hiked with the D20, there is something to be said for a long cylindrical flashlight like this. And I'm saying this by way of reference to perhaps, and I don't have a real good example, I'll just use E2D. A short, fat, squatty flashlight, in some ways, and not this is a great representation again, in some ways is not ideal. I like it, and I think I've mentioned this in some other reviews, of being able to access the light, having the longer ergonomic form factor, especially with gloves, to find it, and having a substantial light, one that's bigger, round, easier found, easier held, especially in colder conditions. That's the Nitecore D20. A little bit heavier, yes, but it's built very solidly. And it has, speaking of construction, a very nice pocket clip on it. Very nice. One of the best I've seen, actually. I think there was a complaint out there saying that a pocket clip came loose. In my use, and it has been rather hard use, I have not seen that. Notice how deep it carries. Oh, nothing fancy like that. You know I'm big on that. A pocket clip that really buries the item, in this case a flashlight, not a knife, so it doesn't get pulled out of the pocket, and it's still easily accessible. Great job on that. The LD20 Plus, and this is probably the regular one, has a clip on it, and it's like this end here. It's not to the end of the light. So A+ on the pocket clip. If you don't like it, it's easy enough to take off with the included little mini Allen wrench like we said there. So size and weight, decent. You know, would it be my first choice for deep backpacking? No, it wouldn't. It's too heavy. Every ounce counts in that situation, or in a tactical loadout, maybe not then. But for short, you know, day hikes, all around the house, EDC use, banging around in a survival kit, D20 will get it done. Ergos. This kind of goes in and actually kind of dovetails and interfaces with user interface or UI. But ergonomically, let's just look at how it fits the hand. I think I've spoke to that already, but it works nicely. Fits in the hand, cylindrical, all that stuff I said. We already covered that. Here's an issue you're going to have to get used to with a D20 though. It does not really have a traditional tactile switch on it. Okay, once again, Fenix LD20, by way of reference, has a forward clicky switch. Click, click on, click off. You can hear it, you can feel it under your thumb. In a loud, noisy environment, it works. The regular Q5 D20 is very silent. The piston drive is actually just that. You are actuating a piston which slides in the cylindrical body to, you know, light the emitter head. You don't hear much, do you? Well, in the Q5 version, you don't feel much either. That is a fair criticism against the D20 with a lot of users. They go, I don't know if I dig that. You know, and it takes a little bit more force, I've noticed too. You know, once you get used to it, not a big deal. And I'll jump ahead in the talking points since we're here already. Let's talk about the user interface. And it's interesting. And after a lot of use, I've come to love it in the Nitecore. And I think it's fast, it's easy to actuate. Yeah, there's some other UIs out there which are equally cool, if not cooler, depending on how you are. You know, the Fenix LD20 is awesome. I like the UI on the 4.7s, A² Tactical. We'll talk about that later. I'm not going to spend airtime now. But for the Fenix, it is infinitely rampable. In other words, you can choose any brightness level you want with these lights. Let me kill these lights here a little bit. So turn it on. So we're going to screw our emitter head down in a clockwise fashion, looking down on the light. So we tighten the emitter head. Why is that important? Because if you don't want it to come on, you need to loosen your emitter head. Okay, so when you push it, see, I can still turn on. Okay, that way it will not accidentally come on in your pocket. And I think there's been some criticisms against the D20 in that regard. Unscrew your emitter head. When you're ready to rock and roll, tighten the emitter head. And here you go. Okay, turn it on, and then you press, and there's other videos out there that show this. I'm just going to go through it real quick. You press the end of the button, and it'll start ramping in one direction or the other. Okay, and if it doesn't, just press it again. See how it's ramping to a dim level? It's actually on. You can barely see it. We'll talk about that. That is a huge advantage of the D20. Press it again, and it starts ramping in an up fashion, all the way to maximum brightness. There's different shortcuts to that UI as well. Let's say the light is off. If I go pressing 1, 2, 3 and continue to press, it'll go full bright like this. 1, 2, 3. It was already full bright, so there it is again. And then if I go 1, 2, 3 release while the light is off, it'll go to max dim. Make sure I don't dink it up. 1, 2, 3 release. Should be in Moonlight mode. It is. Cool. While the light is on, there are still some shortcuts. I should probably clean that glass off. Shortcuts will be 1, 2, keep pressing, max brightness. 1, 2, bam, there it is. 1, 2, release, min level. There it is. So you have those shortcuts. They seem complicated until you start using them. Having hiked with this light for many hours, used it in all kinds of shooting clinics and stuff, they're second nature to me by now. And I think I said that with some other flashlight reviews. Once you use the light you've chosen, you'll just get it down. The question is will the UI satisfy you? And I like the D20's UI. Oh, here's another benefit. So let's say I choose a mid-level brightness mode right there, and then I turn the light off, turn it back on, and it memorizes that. Unlike the Fenix, where I have to start out, at least when I'm in general mode, I have to start out low, tap, medium, tap, high, and then tap again to SOS. I don't have to go through that rigmarole with the D20 or any of the Nitecore series. I love that. It's very advantageous. So getting back to ergonomics, One, you're going to get the brightness level you want. They're easy to access. If you can just deal with maybe not having a super mega tactile switch, you're going to love the UI. Here's another caveat. Let me asterisk that. I know you guys are wondering about that lanyard. I'll tell you here in a second. Here's the R2 version of the D20. And it is an improvement because, I don't know if it's this model. I think it's the model overall. I think they got a lot of feedback say, dudes, we cannot feel or hear the switch. And so listen. Hear that? Tactile. You can hear it actuate. It makes a thump. The piston does. The UI, other than that, works exactly the same. So here's a Q5. By the way, this one's been discontinued. If you go out and buy a D20 now, it's going to be the R2, at least as of 2010, the early part. Subject to change, as always. I better get cranking. This review is going to be long. It's fun talking lights, so it's fun talking knives, rocks, drives to the heart of your capabilities, too. So that's huge. Great ergonomic improvement on the R2. So Ergo's I love the UI on the Nitecore. At this point, it's kind of one of my favorite, actually, having used it. It's just fast, easy to use, and now the R2 being tactile like that, there's that cigar hold that I'm showing you there. Even better. On to brightness and throw. The R2 is a 200 lumen light. The R2 is standing for the improved LED that's riding in the emitter head. This was a Q5, also outstanding at 180 lumens, 200 lumens. I think the minimum levels of illumination are a little bit different. The R2 on the right goes down to 2 lumens, 3 to 5 lumens on the Q5. By way of reference, don't even worry about it. It's completely not even worth measuring. Just know that both of these lights, or the D20 in general, goes really low. Okay, and that is a huge selling point, again, in my book, for this series of lights, and specifically for it being such an outstanding wilderness light. I think a wilderness light, and what do I mean by wilderness light? One, you're going to take away from the city lights. You're going to be out there camping, hiking, shooting, far away from all man-made structures. And it's dark out there. When you get away from the city, it's dark. When you get in those situations, you don't need a lot of light. When your eyes are totally acclimated to the dark, let's use the R2 for the example. You saw some in the intro. And again, the camera may or may not capture this all the way. You know, I have the overhead light on, so I can't really represent it. Let's shortcut it. So 1, 2, 3, release. There it is. There's Moonlight mode. This is all the illumination you need when you're out there. Another advantage is it maintains your night vision. Let me get a drink. Another advantage is it runs your batteries for like ever. Nitecore tells us 150 hours. Have I tested that? Heck no. I don't have time to test that. I'll take their word for it. Mostly, though, these manufacturers' run times are going to be very optimistic. You know that. We've seen it in Phoenix. But even if you get 50 hours out of it, or 72 hours, you know, that's pretty good, isn't it? This is a huge advantage to the D20. That low mode. You're going to see lights catching on to this. You know, 4.7s has caught on to it with their lights. They offer those very low, I call them moonlight modes. Phoenix, at least LD20, not there yet, a little too bright as a wilderness light. D20 and its little brother, the D10, which in a lot of ways is a completely different light. Same UI, same philosophy behind it though, adopts this. So love that really dim mode. I can't stress that enough. I know I said it a couple times. You know, and also a lot of guys concentrate, well, the brightness, how bright is it? R2, extremely bright. Let's shortcut. The light is on, 1, 2, and hold. Bam, there it is. 200 lumens with fresh cells. I think in this light I have Inaloops running in there right now. And Nitecore says you can use those rechargeable batteries. Not rechargeable lithium ion though, so you don't go kaboom. For most users that won't be a problem. The Inaloops are, at least as of 2010, probably my favorite. The brightness is, I wouldn't say dazzling, but it's potent. It gets your attention. Comparing the Q5 D20 against, let's turn this on. There we go. And this has lithium batteries that have been used a bit, so I don't know if it's an ideal comparison. The R2 is brighter though. This is the Q5, there's the R2. It is brighter. By how much? I don't know. I don't have a light meter. Go to Candle Power forums, those good dudes there. A lot of smart guys there that will, you know, can actually measure the light beams if that's what you want. But it is a nice version. Love it. Throw. Downside to the D20. It is more, in my opinion, of an area light. Okay? It doesn't have a pinpoint pattern as you will see there. I located a high ceiling to throw these lights on. You'll see it there. And you'll see that the D20R2 is extremely bright, and it has a very nice way of illuminating an area. However, it doesn't have a huge amount of throw to it. Okay, I think other lights are better. The 4.7's Quark AA squared is better. It's a more culminated beam, throws out farther distance. But let's be real, I don't know. There's a Quark on the left. Now we're back at the table, and there's the D20R2 on the right. I don't know if that's always what you want. You don't always want a pinpoint beam. I know that by using my, what is it, the Streamlight TL2s that I use as weapon lights. They're very great. They have good distance for what they are. They're a 2-cell CR123 cell flashlight. And it's good. If you're trying to throw a beam out there a ways, you want pinpoint, maybe. The D20, I think, is very functional for what most people will do, and that is to illuminate an area. Bucket and I, in high skies, hiked out with this D20. Actually, not this one, the Q5 version, which is a little bit less bright, theoretically speaking, and it rocked. It did well. There was a time when I would, as we're going down some pretty rough areas, steep, snow-packed, and we had to make sure, of the terrain. I was kind of hoping that we would have more throw with the D20. Out at about 50 yards, the beam dissipated and it washed out. Still got the job done. And I'll tell you this, my buddy Bucketnuster absolutely loved the light. Of course, he brought that cheesy Petzl headlamp he had. And I was like, dude, seriously, you need to upgrade your lighting. And he's like, no, this is good. Like all guys, they'll think it's just fine until they use a real flashlight like this. And then they'll go, holy crap, I had no idea. I'm like, yeah, I was trying to tell you. Sometimes you just got to go through it themselves to realize it. So it excelled on that hike out. Not super culminated. How about the beam throw of the D20? Actually, not the throw, but how the beam is created. There are a couple halos in it. And again, the camera may or may not capture all of this accurately. It's a clean beam, though. Well culminated. There's a nice spill beam and aura, as you can see. Couple ghost rings around there, but honestly, I see that with a lot of these newer flashlights. They're not perfect, and it also depends on what distance you're evaluating the beam throw at. Here on the table, it looks pretty tight. Maybe if I back up on that, like on that ceiling, which is about, I don't know, 25 feet up, maybe not that high, 20 feet. And you can see the ceiling fan in there by way of reference, and it's kind of cool because it gives you a frame of reference for the beam. But then you can kind of notice maybe some more artifacts, some more halos and stuff in there. I don't get really wrapped up about the beam pattern as long as it is not obnoxious. Obnoxious to me is a mag light beam pattern, which is completely asymmetric, has big shadows in it, and it just makes it unusable for what you're trying to do. The D20 is definitely not like that. It's smooth, it's clean. If it has any halos, they'll be so minor in nature you won't even notice them. And again, it throws a very clean light compared to, I don't know, the LD20. And the LD20 too, to be honest, and I hope I represent this when I did the tabletop. I mean, it had a few artifacts too. Back at the table there, you can see the LD20 on the left. That's a tighter, and I'm in turbo mode on that one. You can see the tighter beam on that, and then you see the more of a area beam on the D20. So it depends on what you want. I think most guys, well, I shouldn't say that. It just depends on who you are and what you want. But I think most guys would be pretty pleased with the beam on the D20. I know I am, and I'm pretty picky. What my lights do. For a searchlight, in other words, be my primary light, maybe my USK, be okay? Probably not. I need more throw. If I'm looking at someone who's fallen in in some building or something, and they're 25 yards away, 30 yards away. I want a little bit more throw. Okay, on to the talking points. There's probably a lot more we could discuss on brightness and throw. Actually, on burn times too. And if there's any more details that I'm not giving you, again, jump into the forums, dudes. You'll get answers there. Only thing is, it'll take some time to get them. Take some time. Burn times are hard to classify on the Nitecore D20, and here's why. Because it has infinite ramping, right? I mean, how do you judge it? Again, we're just going to go for the min and max. The min, of course, Nitecore tells us, like we said, 150 hours. About an hour and a half at full grunt. That is max blast on this thing. Okay, and that's been pretty true. Again, a little optimistic sometimes. Simplicity. We talked about the UI already. And the modes. Incidentally, one thing about the modes, if I didn't mention it, is there is no strobe. There is no flashing mode. There is no beacon mode. So if those are important to you, then maybe the D20 is not the best choice for you. Like I showed you in my USK series of videos, the Fx lights do have that beacon SOS mode. Actually, strobe and SOS mode. Which in that POU could be helpful, right? Just something to think about. Something to think about. I think the UI is simple. Simple. Works great. No complaints. Versatility. Like I said, I think it's an ideal wilderness light. It's kind of cool just playing with it while we're talking about it. The flashlight modes and stuff. Wilderness light, the low mode, great area light, and it really can maximize your battery life. And therein lies another advantage to the Nitecore D20. All the D series, all the Nitecore lights, but you can really pick that illumination level that you want and that is appropriate for your use. You know, if you're at the campground, no other lights, then go low. You know, doing some engine work in your compartment, max blast it, baby. Highly versatile. Highly versatile. The size might cut down versatility in certain POUs. In other words, I don't know if this would be a great level 2 first aid kit light because it's a little bit big. You know, I don't want to dedicate 6 ounces to my light. As you saw in the videos, what's my light of choice there? Well, I don't need all the multi-modes. It's the Streamlight Stylus Pro that I've talked about at length. Okay, that's slimmer, lighter, but it just depends. I think for what it is, extremely versatile though. As an EDC light, maybe a little bit large, you know, a little bit heavy. I do love that clip though. As a primary light for my police officer buddies, law enforcement dudes, yeah, totally. Let's talk about that lanyard, by the way, before I forget. This is my own lanyard, and as you saw, where's that one box, dudes? Hang on a second. There it is. Lanyard that comes with a D20. And it's actually pretty good. My beef with it is that it's not hollowed out 550 cord, which makes it kind of thick. Okay, and you know, I don't need this on my lanyard, so I make my own. Using that Kelty, you know, this is like their guy line, which has reflectivity in it, built in it. I like that. And I just sewed it on the back like that. See that? Sewed it. And that way I didn't ruin the flat base. And by the way, you can stand the Nitecore up just like so and illuminate an area again. So that's way cool. By the way, since we're back here, if you really have to, and if your light sees a lot of use, you can disassemble the Nitecore D20. And the way you do is take your clip off, you'd spin off that whole back switch area, and then you can disassemble it. You ain't going to do it from the front. Once again, that's just to put the batteries in. And honestly, I don't see why you would have to. I haven't had to in all the months of use that I've had yet. Oh, a couple things I forgot. In versatility and actually the modes, we said infinite levels of lighting. My understanding is there's about 256 output states, requiring about 6 to 7 seconds to go from one to another. In other words, minimum low to max brightness. Some guys will say, well, it ramps too slow. Some will say it ramps too fast. I felt both ways in my use of the D20. Same with the D10. That I was like, God, it's ramping too fast or it's ramped too slow. In actuality, it's probably just about right. Not too bad. Also, while the Fx uses a voltage or a current regulator, the D20 uses pulse wave modulation. And again, I'm not going to spend time talking about that. I think it'll put guys to sleep if I do. One thing I do like is that, and I haven't really tested this, but there is a talk that the D20, D10 series of flashlights take very little current when they're not being used because of their system. The microprocessor draws very little power because there's no current path in the light casing. That's cool. I like that. Travels through the piston sleeve, the interior piston sleeve instead. And the other lights, and again, I'm always learning, but my understanding is they always are drawing just a little bit of current off their batteries. Much less is my understanding with the D10, D20. Very cool. Also, back to waterproofness, Ipx8 is the official rating. That means basically 12 feet for 24 hours static, the light will maintain its waterproof integrity. You start doing dynamic, in other words, swishing it around, you know, maybe all bets are off. Again, I've done it, and it was waterproof. I haven't found any water ingress at all. Not a dive light. If you want a dive light, get a dive light. You know how that goes. And also another thing about the switch is some guys like the D20 piston drive system and that of the D10 as well, because they're a little bit suspicious of the clicky switch. They say, well, you know, with a lot of use, clicky switch can fail. I disagree with that, actually. This is a 4.7 AA squared tactical quark. I haven't seen that. You know, if you get a quality clicky switch, it will last a long time. You get a cheap one, which I have used in my own projects like Radio Shack variety. Yeah, you can have issues. They'll go bye-bye on you. Track record. This is coming straight from me, nothing else, because I have enough experience where I can talk to it. The track record is flawless on the D20. Flawless. No waterproof problems, no breakages of any kind, no clip loosening. I didn't even thread lock these. I guess I should have taken these out. They're fine. You know, dropped it a couple times, hard dropped it on the rocks. Just keeps on trucking. Track record's amazing. Value, well, they upped the price of the R2. This used to be around $58 for the Q5. You know, D20. This one's around 77 bucks. If you can find it. Amazon carries, I think, the R2 version of the D20. And again, all this changes. It's a snapshot in time. You find this video late 2010, this light may completely be discontinued. And guys will say, well, that's a good thing. They're improving it, right? I thought that would be the case. I haven't seen that. You know, what happens is they generally... Well, this is a perfect example. Here you have two versions of the same light. Q5, upgraded LED, slightly upgraded, 200 lumens, 180 lumens. They upped the price by 20 bucks. Okay, so is that an improvement? For that amount of money? No, not really. Because to me, what it is it's not a linear relationship. In other words, for $20, I should have $20 improvement. You know, the 20 lumens make it worth $20 difference. I don't know, maybe not. One difference I do love on the R2 version is this. So that's a huge improvement. So is it an expensive light? No, I'm not going to say expensive. Expensive is surefire. You know, 100 plus. Ridiculous. And a lot of those lights aren't even multi-mode, although Surefire's catching on, and they are making a lot of their lights multi-mode, so great job. I think it's a good value. I think the Phoenix lights represent a better value. You know, around $50, $60 you can crack into an LD20. Disadvantages, LD20 doesn't have that low mode. Doesn't have the infinite or 256 available mode for ramping. Advantages, it's lighter, slimmer. You know, better pocket clip on the D20. The D20 is actually a very squared away light. Very squared away. Good looking, yeah, lightsaber-ish. Just awesome light. The downsides we've talked about. Bigger, a little bit heavier. And some POUs that'll be welcome. Welcome. And what also, let's keep it real, what we're talking about bigger and heavier, the differences are minuscule. But that low mode, as in summary, and we're coming to the end here, for that low mode, you know, the 7075 aluminum body, awesome anodizing, that deep pocket clip, and now the tactile switch. Home run, baby. Home run. Love it. Disadvantage, of course, the beam throw. More of an area light. Also, I got to roll that in to keep it real. There it is. Nitecore D20 by nutnfancy. I reviewed it because I recommend it. And it's going to go into my flashlight playlist. Thanks, dudes. See ya.